do it that way. All right, ladies. So I want to start by reviewing purpose. And I believe I already mentioned that there are really two purposes. I wrote a book on there only being one, right? So if I ever want to get around to redacting that and making some changes, since I wrote the book, I've discovered that there were two. But I'm very happy that this discovery was made. And I don't look at the first 25 years of my life living without an inner purpose as an issue, because it gave me an opportunity to master outer purpose. And outer purpose is different for everyone. Those are our dreams, our bliss journeys, our projects, the things that tug at us to do. There's a lot of different language for what an outer purpose is. But I think you guys are pretty familiar, right? And most people know when they're on point and they're doing something to fulfill their purpose. It might not be the best choice, right? Or the best way to fulfill it, but they're trying, right? And they're connected to it. So they're allowing their life to be guided by their outer purpose. So that's fantastic. Inner purpose, though, is universal. And that's the new learning that I've picked up in the last, year and a half. And that's to be awake, not woke, like they bastardize in the media. We're not talking politics here. We're talking about being awake, being conscious, right? Because we all talked about it, and I'll mention it again before I get off this call, is all transformation, all personal development starts with self-awareness. If you don't have self-awareness, you are just cruising through your life from one thing to the next. Might be good things, might be bad things. Okay. So my outer purpose has always been the same thing. I think Bree, who's known me the longest out of you two, could back me up on this, but it's always been to be inspired myself and to inspire. That's been my purpose dating back to, way earlier than I would think, about 4 years old. But when I finally got to a point where I was attempting to inspire others, probably in my early 20s. So that's how long I've been, connected to that purpose. Would you back me up on that, Bree?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I distinctly remember times in my career when I was living my purpose. So when I started University of Dreams, for instance, Bree, that you participated in, I was on purpose throughout that whole thing, right? That was a 12-year journey. And there was really a 2 or 3 year journey before that with business camp. I'm on point. I'm connected to it. The amount of abundance that it brought to my life is just staggering. I still feel building that company was one of my life's gems, right? On my last day, if I get to give a speech, I'll spend more time talking about that. I don't talk about it as much these days, because the last 5 years of my life seem to connect more with people at our age than talking about my journey with college students as a young man, right? But that was on purpose. But I also distinctly remember years of my life where I wasn't on purpose and I was off purpose. And I have an awful lot of evidence of what it feels like on both sides of that equation. And I can tell you, when I unintentionally sacrificed beingness, and I can't say that I was sacrificing it intentionally, because I didn't really even know of it as a concept. It wasn't something I thought about. I didn't wake up ever and be like, I'm going to forego beingness today, right? I don't want to be awake. I don't want to be conscious. I just didn't know. And it was just, again, I didn't have the tools. And the second thing that I did sacrifice, though, intentionally, I wouldn't use that word, is I just let it slip, was my physical health. And the times that I did that were to either put my outer purpose so far ahead of my health that I let it slide, or to achieve material abundance, right? That wasn't even connected to my purpose. Those were those were my worst years of my career, when it was all about material abundance, almost no connection to my purpose. I wasn't feeling particularly inspired, other than inspired to make even more money, or I was just completely off purpose and not inspiring anybody. Right. So again, I have a fair amount of evidence to answer this question and to go back, and it has formed who I am today. And what I'm coaching you guys on is my own life experiences and what I've seen in other people too. So my question for you is this. You've now had, this is session number 5, I think. I think we started in February, right? You've learned a little bit about presence. I know you both personally. I know some of the battles you've gone through where you've lost your peace, right? Or you lose your peace, right? Also, some of the things you've tried to do to create self-love for yourself, other things that have happened to you that take self-love away, right? And then finally, joy, right? You're both individuals that I know have accessed joy in your life because I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've experienced it. I have evidence of it. And then there's other times where I could just tell in talking to you that, hey, joy's not really around this month or this year, right? And so remember, those are the big 3. The big 3 to enlightenment, whether you choose to go the presence path or choose to go the doing path, is peace, self-love, and joy. Those are really the trifecta, right? That we're seeking, especially through presence. And you can get there either way. So I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to be as honest as possible, and answer it any way you want. It doesn't matter to me how you answer it. I just want it to be authentic. Is that good for you guys? Okay. So if you had to choose between presence and doing, if you had to choose, good news is we don't have to choose. But if you had to choose, which would you choose?
Presence.
Can you elaborate? Can you
What's that?
elaborate? Can you elaborate as to why?
I feel like a lot of times I get overwhelmed and lost in the doingness because I frankly just don't know a lot. I'm 35, but sometimes I feel like I'm 20 still, and I don't give myself credit for the life experience that I do have. And so I'm constantly questioning if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm all right, over intellectualize it. Whereas being present, I feel like I've got that locked in. I can just drop whatever's going on in my head and be present and work my way through that. And that usually, if I'm doing that correctly, if I'm truly present, then that helps me within my beingness, because it clears my mind and it clears me from all of the chatter, all of those egoic, doubts.
Yeah.
And then it brings me clarity on what my doingness should be.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one of the things I'd like to capture of that most is you're not on this call if you're not a doer, right? Or if you don't care about doing, right? So I love untapped potential. So you could be on this call simply because I know greatness is within you. But ultimately, we can get to a point in our lives where we don't trust our decisions about doing this. That is extremely possible. And I see it all the time, right? So that's when a person doesn't lack desire, right? They keep trying and trying and trying. It's like there's no give up in them. Like they'll fall off a cliff before they actually give up, but their choices seem to just be off. The wrong business at the wrong time, the wrong investment at the wrong time. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I've been there too, right? We can easily have a new idea and it's like, oh, that's on purpose. I'm going to go do that, with a disastrous result. Yeah. I want to read to you. Dr. Heather's trying to call me right now during my mastermind about presence. That's kind of funny. This call needs to go away so I can access my phone. Okay. So I had a customer that I coached a couple years ago, and he really sent me, I get like beautiful communications sometimes just out of the blue. I don't expect them. I haven't heard from a person in a year, and then all of a sudden they just floor me. And this person said he was sitting at some kind of port or boat yard, And he found himself reflecting on the people in his life who tell him like it is, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of true honesty. Never afraid to call bullshit when I'm bullshitting myself, but more importantly, offering a new perspective or guidance when they do. And he said, as I felt gratitude for them, I ended with Bliss Champions and then a deeper gratitude for you, Patrick and Heather. So I'm not doing that to toot my horn, but literally, he says, no bullshit. He was looking at these two boats within about 40 boats. And one of the boats, as he came to this realization, was called cash flow. This guy's been chasing financial abundance his whole life, unsuccessfully until after he did Bliss Champions 2 years ago, mind you. You know, just one of those guys, like he would never give up on trying to be rich, but every decision he'd make would make him less rich, right? And then the boat behind it. So cash flow was in front, right? I mean, you can't make this shit up. And then behind them was pure bliss. Like literally, I don't think you can see it, but it literally said, the boat behind it said pure bliss, right? Almost hidden, right? I wish I could really zoom it in. Let's see if I can. Okay, cash flow.
Oh yeah.
And then behind it is that one. It's
Oh.
pure bliss. And I thought that was just so appropriate for what I'm talking about here, right? Because, you know, we see, oh, Val's joining us. We see these things that we desire and we're like, that's our outer purpose. That's what I want. I want cash flow, right? And then the soul is just like, yeah, that's cool. But what you really want, hey, Val, what you really want is this, and that will ultimately deliver that. But it's kind of hidden a little bit behind, right? Welcome, Val. My dad's sitting in on this one. So then he goes on to say something more. I asked him if he's been reading any of my posts within my Facebook group, and he said that he had. And he said I was specifically speaking to one about presence. He goes, it was a wonderful message to receive and share, my friend. I'm doing really well, brother. I haven't heard from him in a year and a half since he left Bliss Champions and started a new business with proper guidance or proper outer purpose in mind, connected to his soul, connected to his inner purpose. I'm doing really well, brother. For the first time in a while, I'm feeling filled up in all areas of life, really staying present and enjoying the ride instead of impatiently waiting for the result to appear. Intentionally choosing happiness now, rather than waiting till a thing, a place, or a win arrives. I'm going to read that part again. Intentionally choosing happiness now, rather than waiting till a thing, place, or win arrives. And he goes on to, how you doing, brother? What magic is unfolding for you these days? So, you know, I think that really connects to what you just said, Stacy. So this could be really transformational, if you understand that simply running off and doing everything that you think will fulfill or bring you the desires of your outer purpose is not the best plan if you're not checking in with your soul. Right? Now, I know this to be true because if we're just talking from an entrepreneur standpoint, 85% of businesses fail. Do you think all 85% of those weren't trying to do something that was connected to their outer purpose? Chances are the majority were. Maybe they loved to be a chef and decided to start a restaurant, right? But then it just went in a disastrous way because they failed to check in with their soul. They failed to connect the two. Now, luckily, my outer purpose to be inspired and to inspired was so perfect for me that it was kind of hard to fuck up, to be honest. But I did fuck it up a couple times, right? I think business camp, my first attempt at my outer purpose, failed miserably. I lost $200,000. I was in so much debt, you know, I could barely survive, right? And then I tapped into more of my soul. Why am I doing this? And that's what led me to create University Dreams, because University Dreams did not fail. It went global, right? And I was able to impact 10,000 lives, right? So I was more on purpose with my second journey. So really key thing. Thank you for sharing, Stacy, because if you didn't share that, none of what just got said would have gotten said. And this is why masterminds work. because we get to learn from each other. All right, Bree, or any follow-up thoughts on that before we have Bree go? All right, Brianne, while you're out, you're going to answer the question as truthfully, authentically as you can. If you had to choose between presence or kicking ass at your outer purpose, doing, which would you choose right now at this stage in your life? So give that some thought. Brianne.
This is such a timely conversation for me. And I'm so glad what just unfolded with Stacey did, because I need that. And I'll tell you why. So short answer is, my gut response was, I prefer doing. It's easier for me. It's more natural to me to find something to do. Presence is really hard for me. And when I try to practice presence, I find myself making a list of things to do. So that seems like where I naturally want to go. In therapy this last week, my therapist told me that he basically told me in not as many words that I need to have a presence practice. And I was recognizing it all because of what we have been talking about and because of knowing Eric and his presence practice. And what I was hearing him say was that I need presence practice. So it's a perfect time for me to be thinking about these two, comparing against each other. But I have been definitely impatiently waiting, as your friend said, for the next big event. I was waiting for this. I thought, I can't be happy until the divorce is final and I have full custody of my kid. And now that I do, I can put that behind me. I can choose happiness now, and I don't want to get sucked into the trap of waiting for the next thing. Like, now I'm not going to be happy until we're, for instance, perfectly settled in our new house, or I'm not going to be happy until whatever it may be. Instead, I'm going to stop here and really dig in and learn from you, Eric, on, okay, I know I've got to get down to presence practice, and I really need to focus on that instead of what the next thing to do is.
Yeah. I love this topic so much because I live it still to this day, right? A presence practice is something you practice the rest of your life. You don't just gain mastery after a 12-month mastermind or 12 months of Patrick Combs personally coaching you, right? Teaching you everything he found out in 10 years. You got to practice at it. So one of the things that was easier for me on the journey was how to address triggers. Triggers are not easy ever, but the tools, like I picked up the tools pretty fast. I can teach them to others. I think I've worked with each of you on that a little bit. I found that part to be a little bit easier for me, and I enjoy that part. But the part that I found hard is I'm a doer, right? I'm a hardcore doer, and it's really, I have no desire. I told Patrick when he first started coaching me on presence, I was kind of combative. Like, even though I asked him to coach me, when it got into doing, I didn't want him to mess with my doing. I'm like, I don't want to be taken down a road where I'm not going to do shit, right? Because my whole identity is wrapped up in doing, my whole legacy, all these things I was telling myself. I actually argued with him for the first 10 minutes when he said, I want you to set your goals, your intentions. And he really wanted peace to be one of them. And I argued that, no, that's not important to me. That's not something that bothers me. Like, I was so short-sighted in that, right? When we ended presence practice, I'm like, that's the number one desire, literally the number one desire, right? So, but waiting, okay? Val can back me up on this big time. As a doer, 5 years ago, I discovered what I wanted to bring most into my life was joy, right? I had the means, resources, whatever you want to say, the time to figure something out. I correctly tapped into my soul, and I said, my soul wants to inspire people. My soul wants to inspire myself. I'm going to get back in the business of inspiring people. So I took that to heart, and I started Bliss Champions, right? Then from there, I was able to create these beautiful retreats, of which you guys have all been to, and they brought me an abundance of joy. Right? I'm happy as a clam doing my retreats. I get super excited the day before. And then when it ends, it's just, I feel this sense of joy and pride and everything, right? I'm at the top of my game. And then ultimately you leave. And I used to struggle with the days after, really, really bad. I found a hack for that. By having gratitude hour before everyone leaves, I fill my heart back up before you leave. So when I'm driving you to the airport, I'm not scared of what's going to happen next, which is 3 days to a week of just depression, right? Of not having a way to fill up my heart. Believe me, I tried everything, right? So the gratitude hour solved it. And then ultimately, though, Val, this is where Val knows me best, probably out of you guys, just in this one area in particular, is that then I have to wait. The next retreat isn't going to start for 3 more weeks, 4 more weeks, maybe 6 more weeks. And I'm just like, what do I do? Now, when I was running Bliss Champions, I had coaching, I had all this other stuff, but I will continue to battle this the rest of my life, right? And I'm super, super clear. I can't have a retreat every week, all 52 weeks. So there's always going to be in between time, Bree, right? And what I want to break is this uneasiness with waiting, the lack of patience, the attempt to fill up my schedule, to fill it up with awesome doingness. I mean, I've been to 50 countries probably because of this characteristic, right? Because I don't want to wait in between. Like, hey, Lori, you want to go to Zimbabwe? Yeah, let's go tomorrow, right? Luckily, I have the means to do that. But what I'm now practicing is, can I be happy, right? Can I source joy, peace, and self-love doing absolutely nothing? I'll be honest, I find it really hard by myself. I find it to be a lot easier when I can share my love with others, right? So when others are around. So I'm finding that's important to me. I'm not a monk. I'm not a what do you call it? A hermit. I'm not somebody who could just be in a cave by myself. I'm not there yet. And I'm not sure I'll ever want to be there, right? Because ultimately I have a lot of love in my heart and I want to share it and I want to give it. And I can find sources of inspiration by myself all the time. But without the ability to actually inspire others, I feel less filled up, right? So Bree, the key thing is to check in with that. I never want you to stop doing and teeing up doing this, right? But what's to stop you from each day, filling your heart, with presence and even just a touch of doing this? So for instance, I ended my coaching career. I ended Bliss Champions, the best thing that's ever happened to me in my career. I closed it out. But what am I doing with you guys? Right? What I didn't like about coaching was the business of coaching, the business of selling yourself as a coach and signing people up and marketing and all that nonsense. What I love about coaching is what I'm doing right now. So there's always ways to find things, right? So I think that's pretty key, but I suffer from it. So I think it's great when we share, like, Bree, I suffer from this. And Val knows, like, sometimes really bad. Val's the one probably most connected to this house most often. I see Val more than I see some people that live on the property even, right? Because they're so busy doing stuff and Val has to come over and check on things and do stuff. So we get to talk a lot, right? And it lifts me up because I know Val's someone in my life that I'm inspiring, right? So that's my cross to bear in working on that is, can I be alone and find peace? I can't do it without presence. I can't do my way to that peace, So welcome, Francesca. We got some new folks. Mike, welcome. We're answering this very important question. If you had to choose between peace, and I'm even going to go so far as versus kicking ass at your purpose, what would you choose? You had to choose.
So to clarify, so in our bliss, so we're kicking ass in our bliss, but there's no peace with it. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying you have to choose. And I know this is a fucked up question for you, to be honest, because you're trying your hardest to do something really cool. It is on purpose, right? It's your outer purpose, right? Yet you've seen what happens when peace gets uprooted. How good are you at your purpose then?
Yeah, I am definitely leaning towards peace.
Share with us why, you don't have to tell any stories or anything. Just share why.
Because I've been there when I didn't have peace, and you kind of said it already. it's almost like I'm on autopilot, and I've been in instances where I've literally felt numb and not present,
Yeah.
and not really aware of anything, even with myself, with others. And so I've had to take the time, and it happens actually a lot. And this, I actually have a mentor, another mentor who's an actress, and she said it, where you can get so wrapped up into certain things, especially in this industry. When you don't have peace, you don't have, what do you have? So definitely peace, because I've had to take a step back.
Yeah.
Peace.
I mean, I just saw you out here at Bliss Island. I've never seen you better, right? You were just kicking ass. You were lighting it up. You were handing out like cards for your film, and you never looked better. And then 1 week later, your peace got disturbed, right? And how long did that affect you? It might still be to some degree, but you're back doing your purpose again. But we lose our peace, and it's just like, holy shit, we can't function. And I'm not just talking about like 3-day long, week-long triggers, guys. I'm talking destructive things, right? So great answer. Thank you. We got more folks joining. This is exciting. Val, would you like to go next? Or can you go next? Are you in a place you can go next?
Yeah, sorry, just a lot of dogs around, but yeah, I think in the peace for sure. I do feel like I'm always trying to get that anyway. I mean, when you live here on the island, you kind of are forced into it, I think, a little bit more. Like, you have a lot more time alone, a lot more time in solitude. And it used to really bother me. Like you were saying, it's hard to be, it's hard sometimes to be alone and do all that. But I find myself, I do enjoy it a lot more now. And, I'm just focused on what's going to make me happiest, and that is peace, and not being like super I don't know, stressed about it, or I don't know, I don't necessarily feel like I have a purpose, so I think like peace is where I'm
The
at.
volume.
Yeah, outer purpose. Yep. Very cool. Good answer.
Yeah.
Hawaii is this terrific place because it really has these healing elements to it, right? Where it's almost in partnership with your soul, with daily reminders like telling you that doesn't really matter, right? Look at me, look at nature, check me out. How do I make you feel, right? You just get daily reminders of that. I came in and saw my mom this morning. My parents are staying there for 6 weeks, and she was just all lit up. She was in her jammies, having her coffee. She couldn't wait to talk to someone. I think I got that from her. I think my dad can be alone all day long and doesn't need to speak to a single person and have perfect presence, practice, and peace. But my mom needs to talk to somebody. So I came down and she was so excited. She's like, "Did you see the sunrise?" And I didn't see the sunrise. Apparently it was spectacular, like it often is here. And she went on to describe it, and the whole thing was, just a really neat thing. So Hawaii is this wonderful reminder. Joseph and Zoe could tell you that. Welcome, guys, as well. So I think these are great examples. I'm really anxious to hear Mike's response, right? Because Mike is a grade A doer as well. You're not on this call if you're not a doer, I don't think. Mike, I know you get up every day, you work your ass off, you grind harder than anyone I know to make your dreams happen, right? But if you had to choose one, if you had to choose between peace, right, and kicking ass at your dream, what would you choose?
Definitely kicking ass at my dream.
Yeah, I expected that. So Mike, like me, I didn't even want peace to be one of the 3 things I was going for. You know what I tried to substitute it with my presence coach? Gratitude, right? Full-blown ego move, right? So gratitude is also something I'm already good at. I already get a lot of it. I get a lot of pats on the back for my achievements in doing, and I wanted gratitude to be part of my presence practice, something I didn't need whatsoever, right? So Mike is so in the thick of it, guys. I get it. Like, if I were Mike, I would have given the same exact answer, right? Because I was Mike at times in my career. And it's an honest answer. So just share why, Mike.
I feel like when I go, like, I went to Kauai, I vacationed. I can't sit on the beach. I cannot sit still. I think that I'm always going, and I think that would actually bring me more peace. Like I can't sit still. So if I'm kicking ass and doing things, then I'm in a spot where I feel like I'm at ease. I'm just like cruising along. That's how I felt when I was doing the marathons. Had those big contracts. Everything was going good. I think I felt that was my peak because everything was just everything was. So my piece is kicking ass.
Great. So it's really great. This is why masterminds work, is we get to hear both sides of the equation. You can't give a wrong answer. It's just your answer, right? It's your answer at this particular time in your life. Mike might wake up 5 years from now and have a completely different answer, right? One of you that's been a little bit better at the peace side might wake up and be like, I haven't really done shit in 5 years. I need to do some stuff, right? So again, no wrong answers. So Joseph and Zoe, thanks for joining. We'll get you guys last and then we'll move on. The question I'm asking you to answer, I pointed out earlier, we went over purpose, outer purpose and inner purpose. Inner purpose is universal, to be awake, conscious. Outer purpose is whatever you choose. Maybe it's being a great chef, right? So I'm going to ask you this. If you had to choose, you don't have to choose. That's the good news. But I'm going to ask you to choose in the most authentic way. If you had to choose between peace, right, and inner purpose, being awake, or kicking ass at your purpose, what would it be? I'm definitely making it harder by saying kicking ass at your purpose, because nobody's right out saying I'm totally kicking ass at my purpose, right? I've got extra time to work on my piece. I am making it a little bit harder by saying it that way. I mean, I could literally be saying to Francesca, hey, you're about to win an Oscar, or you have to choose between that and your piece. That's a tough question, guys.
I think I choose, sorry. There's a lot going on this morning. I think I would choose peace, if I'm answering the question correctly.
Yeah. Ah, see, he got it in. All right. Maybe they'll come back. They have bad internet over there. They live on the property, but in a more rural setting. If they come back, we'll let them answer. Oh, here we go. All right.
Are we back?
Oh, were you just dropping the mic on that? It was a peace mic drop.
I choose peace.
Zoe, why don't you go next?
I would choose overall in life. I would choose peace over kicking ass on my purpose, and hopefully, fingers crossed, those two would intertwine, kind of like Mike said.
Probably the least surprising answers I've ever received from anybody I've coached. I would fully expect, knowing you as well as I do, that you would choose peace, right? And so ultimately we are going to get into that. So hold on to that thought, and we're going to move into this next part of this. So beingness makes a pretty good case for coming first, because without it, you'll likely not source peace, which without that, no matter the amount of material wealth or goal achievement, is really going to make you feel truly well. Okay. Plenty of people kicking ass that don't feel well. There's nothing wrong with people kicking ass. I'm not asking you to not kick ass, but to feel truly well. So you may be able to produce moments of happiness from all your success. I call bullshit on people who say you can't buy happiness. First class seats buy me some happiness. A lot better than a, middle seat next to the bathroom, right? Because all happiness really is momentary, momentary pleasure. It's, if you're talking about sustained happiness, okay, we can have a different conversation, but money doesn't buy joy. I've tried, right? Not sustained joy. So ultimately, you'll be able to produce moments of happiness from all your success, but we'll find joy harder and harder to come by. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, I just spent 5 years coaching people who really, by most people's measurements, have it all, right? Successful careers, right? They slayed their doing. beautiful spouses and kids and all of this stuff. And they couldn't have less joy in their life if they tried. Right? So I've seen it time and time again. And finally, if you have to make great sacrifices to your peace and joy in order to do, you'll quickly find that you are not providing a sufficient level of self-love to yourself. Now, before Mike jumps off this call, as I probably would have done in his place 10, 15 years ago, because I would have been calling bullshit. Because what we tell ourselves, Mike, is once I achieve my success, once I achieve my dream, I'm going to have plenty of joy and plenty of peace. What I want to instead challenge each of you to do is to consider mastery at both simultaneously. They're not binary. They're not separate. They don't have to be separate. Doing will not bring you the peace and joy that presence will. And if it's not going to bring you those things, you're not tending to your own self-love. You're sacrificing it. In my case, it's my health. Done it again and again and again and again. Okay. Mastery at both turns you into Yoda. I don't know if you guys are Star Wars fans, but Yoda is equally capable of being super calm and peaceful and wise, right? Especially when Yoda's coaching young Luke, but equally capable of doing and raining down the most fearsome war when necessary, right? Yoda's equally capable of doing that. When Luke ran off and left his training, right? He went off to do something amazing, save the universe, save the empire, whatever. I don't have all the lingo. But ultimately, he ended up sacrificing his peace and his joy. So being a double threat means that you're successful at both your inner and outer purposes, right? If Mike was sitting here with all his accomplishments and I don't know, he's got the biggest, Iron Horse franchise on the planet. He's making millions of dollars a year, but he sacrificed his peace and his joy to get there, right? He'd be the perfect candidate for Bliss Champions. On the other side, if we're not doing enough, if we're not getting out and focusing on our doing and achieving our outer purposes, but we have pretty good peace, we realize we might be missing out on something as well. So it was important that you just answered the question truthfully. So being a double threat means that you're successful at both your inner and your outer purposes. It means you're awake, you're conscious, you're self-aware, and you're also doing cool shit. That ties to your purpose. Now, there's something called a triple threat. Of course, there's always one layer that's even better, right? That's hard enough to accomplish in one lifetime. But to be a triple threat is to have physical wellness to go with this newly gained, what I would call mental awareness wellness. And some of you may have read my big announcement the other day. I did a 5-part series in Facebook. Raise your hand if you just saw it, if you had a chance to read any of it. Okay, cool. So I made a pretty big announcement the other day that I'm going to pursue physical wellness and becoming a father as my next bliss journeys. Okay. I'm 52. Not a lot of dudes try to become fathers at 52, right? So ultimately, these two choices, I think, will provide the most tremendous growth for me at this stage in my life. And this is why I want to embrace them. They're just two epic journeys that I've sacrificed the past 30 years while living my purpose, while I was doing cool shit, right? Was I intentionally, did I wake up every day and go, I'm going to do cool shit instead of becoming a dad? No, I did not do that. It's just kind of the way that it's worked out. But I could point to 1,000 times as to where I put my purpose, my outer purpose first. Okay. This means that I'm seeking to become a triple threat. I'm already a double threat. I know that. I wasn't a double threat till about 2 years ago, but I'm becoming stronger and stronger in my presence practice. I'm certainly awake now. It doesn't mean I'm kicking ass every day at it, but I'm very awake, right? This means that I'm seeking to become a triple threat while also building on my inner purpose work, okay? Because we all know that becoming a parent will force growth in ways that go beyond just about anything. As Stacy nods her head. So what I didn't announce though, is I have a secret weapon. And I am trying my secret weapon. I didn't announce that I'm trying my outer purpose. I'm utilizing my outer purpose to help me really commit. Okay. So one of the biggest reasons we fail to do the things that we desire is a lack of courage, right? So I've been building up this courage. This announcement might not have seemed on brand for me, but it's a big commitment to become a dad. It's a big commitment to put your physical wellness first when your habits have been doing the opposite for 30 fucking years. And actually, excuse me, I'll watch my swear words, and my awareness of that, right? So why? Because to achieve these two things, I need to put on my best armor, and my best armor is my business acumen. So I'm starting a new company called Wellness Weekends with Val, with Joseph, with Zoe, with Patrick Combs, with Chris Kadowski, my wellness guru guy. And I'm rolling up all my companies, including Bliss Island, Bliss Champions. I'm out there raising capital, and we're going to convert Bliss Island to a wellness weekend center. We're not going to use the R word anymore, retreats. We'll still do retreats from time to time, but we're focusing on every weekend, committing to wellness. And I'm super, super excited about this. And what I'm doing is I'm leveraging actually my best capability with also my number one reason why I wasn't doing either of these. Do you catch the drift? So I'm going to send you an email of what I put together. It's long, and Bree, try not to proofread it too much. I spent so much time proofreading it. I can't take any more edits, I don't think, but feel free if you want to. Bree's an expert at that. So I wrote this thing. I don't want you to read it from the perspective of an investor. I want you to read it from this perspective of, oh, he's pulling a little Yoda thing here, where he's using the one thing that stops him from achieving these two things to actually achieve these two things. Right? Because do any of you ever believe that I'm ever going to stop working or stop doing? Right? So forcing it to the weekends, what does that do? Frees up the other 5 days. It also lessens the amount of waiting time for me in between. So why is this even possible? Because I'm tapping into what my soul's desires are. Okay. The holy grail of presence is when you achieve both simultaneously. I also needed to recreate my business because Lori and I are going to spend half the year in Miami. That's likely where we're going to adopt, right? Because we want a mixed child. We've known that for some time. We haven't been able to have kids, and we're most likely going to start a life there, but we're not leaving our life here. We're going to spend time between the two. So I had to figure out a business that could work without me and with me. So when I'm there, I'm loving it. And when I'm not there, I'm trusting the crew that's here behind to be able to deliver it. And then I had to take all their desires into account too. So I want you to read this thing because it's really written to convince people to invest in it, but it was really came from my soul. Every word came from my soul. I'm just using my best skill set to get what I want. So I think it would be a really good thing for you guys to read it. Take the time, over coffee. It's not a short read. Okay. Because this is called awakened doing. Right. So for those of you that are like, I don't like this question. Why are you asking me to choose? Awakened doing is when consciousness flows through you to the world and inspires your thought. It inspires your thought. It doesn't take away doing. It inspires it, but it inspires back to what Stacy said earlier, the right doing. And it inspires your thought and into what you do and guides and powers it. Took me 7 days to write this document I'm going to send you. And I'm a writer. Took me 7 days. That's why I joke. I proofread it so many fucking times I can't even begin to tell you. Then the rest of this. This is miracle fuel. Okay? It's not what you do, it's how you do it. This is what fulfills your destiny. The opposite of this is ego. Mike, I'll give an example with Mike. What Mike wants most from his Harley Davidson rental business is to take people on tours that would lead to transformation and mental wellness. What Mike has right now in his business mostly is a motorcycle rental business. It's not his desire. His purpose is for people to transform, to be out on that Harley and feel how he feels, which is at peace and in joy and self-loving. That's why he started the business. Mike's super on purpose. He just wants his outer purpose to be successful, right? It came from a place of awakened doing. I know because I coached Mike into this decision to start this business. And we had to reach into his soul. What does Mike need, right? We just got to morph the business so Mike gets what he needs more often. Not easy. It can be hard sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to read that to you again, and then I'm also going to put it here in the chat. And oh, great. I'm glad I'm chatting because Jessica has a question. Okay, awakened doing is when consciousness flows through you to this world and inspires your thought and into what you do and guides and powers it. This is miracle fuel. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. This is what fulfills your destiny. The opposite of this is ego. Awakened doing is a choice, guys, to go with what your soul wants, not what your ego wants. Okay? So I'm just going to introduce this, but it's going to be the whole second half of the year. We're going to be digging into this and helping you find out what will awakened doing bring into your life. If you've struggled with figuring out your outer purpose, but have been successful at your inner purpose, imagine when we combine the two. If you're a doer, but you don't have much peace, imagine what can happen next. Okay? So I'm not going to jump in today to running with that because I want to get into something else just first to end here that I think will be helpful to tee up the next one. So we're going to do an exercise. We're going to work on imagining new habits. Okay? Any personal development coach worth their salt will tell you this. If you want to change your life, you change your habits. Life will conform to your standards. You get what you tolerate. So a good question to ask yourself is this. If someone were to spend a day in your mind, would they have a good time? Would it be a party? Would it be fun? Would it be a party you want to return to? If they got to spend a day in your mind. I'm not going to ask any of you to answer this. It's just too personal. And only you can answer this. And as I've said all along, self-awareness is the first step towards transformation, but it's a hell of a question. If someone were to spend a day in your mind, would they have a good time? If your answer today is no, don't worry about it. Okay? This is why we're here. We're here to transform. I want you to everybody close your eyes for a second. Imagine not being able to remember the last time you were stressed out. Imagine not worrying at all. Imagine feeling disrespected, and instead of it affecting you, you just notice it and it takes nothing from your peace. Imagine when you perceive a lack of gratitude and it doesn't upset you because your peace is impenetrable. Imagine really bad shit in your life happening and still being able to source peace. Imagine having the power to quiet the useless thoughts that pop into your head all day long so you can actually hear your soul speak. Imagine being connected to your soul at will, a direct line. Imagine becoming conscious of what your soul's desires are. It's not confusing. It's really clear. Imagine a life where your soul leads the way, not your ego. Imagine peace, joy, and self-love being the result more often. Okay, open your eyes. So today we're going to work on imagining new habits that will bring more presence to your lives. I'm going to ask you to write down 5 to 10. Okay, it doesn't matter how many habits that you think would do this for you, that would bring more presence into your life. And afterwards, I'm just going to ask a few of you to share so you can learn from each other. If something's super private, you don't need to share it. So just write down 5. Let me give you an example of what my 5 were after months and months of coaching with Patrick. 1, my ego wants to play out imaginary arguments, but I laugh and decide not to, cutting off oxygen and nutrition to such thoughts. Number 2, instead of daydreaming, I'm going to choose to be present. Number 3, I'm going to choose being present over time killing with things like Netflix, my smartphone, and other go-to distractions. Number 4, I'm going to trade time killers for a future miracle. Number 5, I'm going to accept things as they are and thus stay in reality. So go ahead, take a few minutes, take about 5 minutes to come up with 5 to 10 of your own. Few more minutes. If you thought you were done, spend the next minute and a half trying to plus it. Make it even better. Make the habit even better and more appealing. 30 more seconds and we'll wrap up. All right. Would anyone like to share? And you don't need to share all of them. You can just share ones you feel like sharing.
I'll go first.
Thank you.
All right. So I came up with 5. Number 1 is to replace scrolling with reading, like an actual book.
That's
Um, 2, I want to dial in my nutrition and my sleep. I also, number 3, doing the things that my heart desires, scared and imperfect and anxious. Because a lot of times those things are scary to do because they don't always make sense. Or they're not logical. Number 4 is probably the biggest one. Adopting a competitor's mindset and constantly attacking versus, so like kind of forcing the world to react to me versus me reacting to the feedback that I'm getting, which is like my default. I'm constantly just like reading the room and waiting to react according to the feedback. So dictating versus reacting, I guess. And then number 5 is to dance daily with my kids.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Love this. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share a few?
I'll go.
All right.
I wrote like 10, but I'm not going to share them all. It kind of went crazy. But number 1, stop thinking about the future constantly, which gives me anxiety. Focus on the present, that I can be present and just do. And in that same instance, accept my past and experience as lessons that will continue to push me forward. 3, letting go the need to control every situation and let things be and just be more present within the universe. 4, take much needed rest, but don't procrastinate. Learn the balance. And 5 is, and it kind of goes with what you said, Stacey, a little bit, but just stop making assumptions about how others may feel about me, letting that consume me. Less ego talking will bring me more peace, and instead accept each individual for who they are, and know that I can't control that. So
awesome. Awesome. Wonderful share. Anyone else? Thank you, Francesca. Don't be scared. We won't bite. Don't make me call on you.
I'll go. I don't want you to call on me.
Oh, who's
I don't want you to call on me.
go?
Go ahead, Bree. We'll get to you, Zoe and Joseph next.
Sorry, Zoe. Okay, so I said radical acceptance is something I've been working on with my therapist, of just the idea that everything is just as it should be. Meditating when big emotions creep up instead of letting them take over my mindset. Choosing happiness in the moment instead of choosing happiness in the moment when I start to make plans to fill every minute of the day. And really that just means not trying to fill every minute of the day with busyness, but just being more present and at peace. And then I said, writing down my goals and reflecting on them daily.
Nice. Thank you, Bree. Zoe? You're on mute.
I'm unmuted. Hi. A couple of mine would be, a big one is to stop scrolling. I for years didn't have social media and it's a way better life, I gotta say. So returning to that practice. And then reprioritizing my health in a way of like what I eat, how I spend my time, exercising my body properly, just really prioritizing that, because when that becomes a habit, like your emotional wellness follows suit, you know? And sorry.
Oh, we lost him. They'll be back. Val and Mike, no pressure. You want to just share one or two? Val, looks like you're.
Fine, I'll share
Mike,
one.
you go first.
I think not taking customers or external people's what they do personal. Don't take it personal anymore. Like that's all on them. And you know me, I have this so close to my heart, right? So when there's I feel like they're attacking me, but it's their shit. So I think I need to really focus on, okay, that's them, not me.
Yeah. Mike is so dedicated to his dream that it's just such a part of him. He tries so hard. So when a customer says something shitty, it's just like death by 1,000 stabs, right? And so this is the number one thing for him to work on, right? And this is about peace, Mike. It's not about getting more customers. It's just about peace. Thank you for sharing that. Val, we lost your video. But we
Okay, yeah, sorry, I can't figure out
no worries.
to map that well. But I guess for me, like a huge one is just like being more social and accepting, more friendship and more people in my life, because I do isolate. Like I do not have the same problem as you, where
No,
I
you
love
can
being
live in a cave for sure.
yeah. So that's a big one for me. Doom scrolling, I do that as well, probably once a day at least. I can spend I could do better with that time for sure. Being more active without excuse. A lot of times, like it's cloudy, it's gonna rain, like don't go ride your bike. That is a huge excuse for me. So kind of just like getting rid of those excuses, I think would be key. And then just being more dedicated to like all my ADHD hobbies and crafts that I've picked up and spent copious amounts of money on to just, fizzle out. When I do like them, I just need to put more time and dedication to them. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Val. That was wonderful, you guys. Really, really appreciate your willingness to actually share it, because we can all learn from each other. I mean, who didn't mentally write down Stacy's less scrolling, more reading, right? I think we're all readers in this group, right? And I used to read a book or two a month, and I don't think I've read a book in about 4 months. So a huge reminder to me. So that's the power of Mastermind, is we can learn from each other. So we're going to wrap up in the next 7 minutes. And then, like always, I'll stay on extra for anybody who wants to, but I'll give the homework in the last minute for next month. But Francesca had a question. I just missed it. I didn't have my chat open. Do you still have that question?
Yeah, and it has to do with peace and career. And I've run into this, I had this thought. So and my answer would be changing, but like, what if we look at, okay, this career, this is what's going to bring me peace. So I am doing this, I'm choosing this so I can have peace. And is that a wrong thought to have? Because I still struggle with it, but
so I think this gets back to the beginning of the call that Stacy brought up, is I think there's a really big difference between being 100% clear that you are on an awakened doing journey, right? Because it changes everything in the area of peace, right? You've chosen a very challenging career, right? being an actress, being a director, being a script writer couldn't be more challenging other than being an Olympic athlete and going for one of the 3 medals, right? I think that's probably, to be the top 3 out of 6 billion, that's quite a journey. So applaud you, and you're after it, right? And this isn't your first try, right? So I think the key is when you're tapped in and it comes from your soul, there's no stopping, right? You're going to have to kill Mike to stop Mike from doing this dream, right? He might run out of money trying to do it, but you'd have to kill him to stop him. So we want to check into that awakened doing, because when you have 100% clarity on what you're doing, you'll realize that the only thing holding you back isn't your choice of dreams. It's just how you're doing it. Right? So it just comes down to strategy. How can I do this different? How can I do this better? What paths can I choose? What strategies can I change? And then it becomes strategic. And I can point to this with you, Francesca, because I've seen you at your heights. I've seen you when your dream happens, right? And you're living it, you're in your moment. Those are my favorite posts that you do online. We're connected via Facebook. And like when you're with your crew, it's kind of where I see it the most. Like you just finished filming, maybe you're having the little film party, or it's literally at the filming on the last day or something. And you knew you did that. You put that work together. You were at a heightened sense of joy, right? On a day like that, your awakened doing is sound, right? It's the other days. It's the days when you get the no's, right? So if you have awakened doing behind you, it's a whole different ballgame. And that's what I want to help you guys in the next 6 months. It might not be your choice of outer purpose that's the problem if you're not achieving your desires. It might be that you didn't listen to your soul's tips, your soul's advice, your soul's recommendations. So we're going to try to put together your ability to do with your soul. We're going to put those two together. And that's going to help bring you peace, even on the bad days. Because there's just no question, like, this is what I'm doing. It may just be how I'm doing it that needs adjusting, especially in your line of work, right? How many paths are there? Literally, how many paths are there? A gazillion. And one of the things I appreciate about Mike is he's constantly like, I want to get better. I want to get better. I want to change how I'm doing. It's not working. I want to do this. I want to do that. And, he goes on the roller coaster of sometimes what he implements works, sometimes it doesn't, but he never stops trying. He gets frustrated, but, when he's kicking ass, those are my favorite calls. Not that I mind the frustrating calls, Mike, but when Mike's cruising in momentum, he doesn't even need to talk to me. But I love those calls. Like, tell me about your awesome day. Tell me about your awesome week. Tell me about your awesome month. Does that help?
Yes.
But if you're not tapped into your soul, it means you just let your ego decide how to go about your doing. And one thing I've learned, and I know for sure, is that ego will never be able to lead you to sustain joy, peace, or self-love. It might make you rich. There's a lot of rich douches in the world led by their ego. But I think you wouldn't be on this call if you didn't want these other 3 things too. You don't have to sacrifice richness to have these 3 things, right? When I ask people, who's your favorite entrepreneur? I swear to God, 75% of the time people say Richard Branson. The reason they pick Richard Branson and not a guy like Jeff Bezos is because they see that he has peace, joy, and self-love in his life, in addition to the billions, right? Cool. Any other questions before I give the homework? And I am going to hang out if it's more personal. Okay. Hey, buddy. Joseph just came in. The homework for next month, for this month, that I want you to practice is I want you to implement at least 1 or 2 of these habits into your daily lives. Now, what I've learned is when you try to implement more than 3 things, it gets pushed down. So I want to just ask you to pick 2. You're welcome to introduce the other ones too, but I'd like you to pick 2 that you think would be most impactful to your presence practice. And I want you to dedicate to it every day. I really, really do. And I want you to come back next month and I want you to share the results. Okay? It's not a contest. And if the results are, I didn't do shit, I'd rather hear that than some made up thing. So I always want us to be authentic because we can learn from each other in wins and losses. Any questions about that? So pick 2 from your list of 5 and implement it because you need evidence. Just me here sitting here telling you that presence is now in my life and I consider it even more valuable than my doing from a guy that spent his whole life doing. I want to make sure that you get evidence yourself or it's just not going to take. Cool. All right. So now we're just going to open it up for questions. Any questions that you guys might have. No bad questions. And if you need to drop off, feel free.
I don't have a question, but I kind of had some insight that I was inspired to share.